My father raised his glass and said, "Olivia, you should learn from your brother, Leo. Stop wasting time on this stupid startup of yours." A chuckle ran around the table. I forced myself to smile. Suddenly, the TV in the dining room turned on. Breaking news. Olivia Morgan, secret billionaire behind Aegis Dynamics, revealed net worth $11.2 billion. Before we continue, please subscribe and give this video a like in advance. Enjoy watching. My father raised his glass and said, "Olivia, you should learn from your brother, Leo. Stop wasting time on this stupid startup of yours." A chuckle ran around the table. I forced myself to smile. Suddenly, the TV in the dining room turned on. Breaking news. Olivia Morgan, secret billionaire behind Aegis Dynamics, revealed net worth $11.2 billion. Mom's fork clattered onto the floor. Leo's smirk vanished. I stood up, pushed my chair back, and whispered, "I apologize, my board of directors is waiting." And that was just the beginning. Before I delve into the details, hit like and comment where you are watching from. It is strange now to look back and realize how ordinary those years seemed, as if I was just floating through life in my brother's shadow. Leo was the golden child, the one teachers praised, the one my parents bragged about to friends. "Leo is on the honor roll again," Mom beamed at dinner. "The professor says Leo is Ivy League material." And me, I was an afterthought, the one they reluctantly patted on the shoulder before asking, "So, are you still tinkering with your little computer project?" I still remember the day I brought home my first prototype, a crude circuit board soldered together in my cramped apartment. I skipped meals for days, pouring every ounce of energy into making it work. My hands were shaking with excitement when I showed it to my father, thinking and hoping he would finally see me. He looked at the board, frowned, and said, "That's nice, Olivia, but maybe you should think about law school, or at least something practical." Leo laughed in the corner, throwing a look at me that said it all. "You'll never measure up." These little moments accumulate and weigh heavier than they seem. I learned to hide my victories. The small grants I won at university competitions. The angel investor who wrote me my first $20,000 check. The night my code finally crossed the million-user mark during testing, none of it mattered to them. To my parents, I remained the kid with the stupid startup. To Leo, I was the punchline at family dinners. I used to think that maybe the problem was me, that I wasn't impressive enough, that my dreams were too strange, too unrealistic. But then I would remember the hours no one else saw. The nights when the apartment walls hummed with the sound of my servers, when I fell asleep with unfinished ramen by the keyboard, when my fingers developed calluses from typing, but I refused to stop. Success for me was not a question of if, it was always a question of when. But family knows how to make you doubt yourself. There was a Christmas party when my father introduced Leo to his business friends as our pride and joy, and me as our daughter. She dabbles in technology. I stood there holding a paper cup of eggnog and smiling as if it didn't hurt me to the core. Another time, my mother took me aside after church and whispered, "Maybe it's time to stop embarrassing yourself, Olivia. Your brother can help you find a real job." On the surface, her words weren't cruel, but there was a sharp note of dismissal in them. I nodded, swallowed the lump in my throat, and went home to write another 2,000 lines of code. If you have ever been underestimated, you know that it is like gasoline poured on a fire. Every rejection, every laugh behind your back, every time someone looks at you and sees less. It doesn't just sting, it feeds you, and it fed me for years. While Leo strutted in custom-made suits, bragging about internships and connections, I quietly sat at my second-hand desk, creating something they couldn't even imagine. I didn't need their applause. I didn't need their belief. All I needed was silence, the glow of my screen, and the feeling of approaching something grand. Every sacrifice, missed birthdays, canceled vacations, loneliness, I bore it all because I knew one day they would see. One day the startup they laughed at would become an empire they never believed was possible. And so, when Father raised his glass at that dining table, comparing me to Leo and telling me to stop wasting my life, it wasn't the first time I had heard those words, but it was going to be the last. The night everything collapsed didn't seem special at first. It was just another one of those mandatory family dinners where Mom fussed with the table settings, Father invited his business friends, and Leo walked in like the main star of the evening. I almost didn't go. I was closing 3 acquisition deals in Europe and had a board meeting scheduled. But Mom insisted, and a part of me still clung to the old hope. Maybe this time would be different. I walked in wearing a simple black sweater and jeans, an outfit that allowed me to blend into the background. Leo showed up in a perfectly tailored suit, his Rolex gleaming under the chandelier light. The comparison started even before I sat down. "Look at Leo," one of Dad's friends said with admiration. "Determined, confident, just like his father." And then the blow followed. Father raised his glass, cleared his throat, and looked right at me. "Olivia," he said, and his tone was heavy with disappointment, "you should learn from your brother. Stop wasting time on this stupid startup of yours. Leo is the pride of this family." The words weren't new. I had heard versions of them all my life. But that evening, something inside me changed. I smiled faintly as if it didn't matter. But deep down, I felt the line had been drawn. Maybe they thought I would laugh and forget. Maybe they thought I would sit quietly, as always. And then, out of nowhere, the TV in the dining room came alive. Someone must have left it on mute, because suddenly bold red letters scrolled across the screen. Breaking news. Everyone in the room turned to it. My chest tightened when I saw my own face. "Identity REVEALED, the anchor's voice cut through the chatter. "After years of secrecy, the mysterious force behind Aegis Dynamics is confirmed. Founder and CEO Olivia Morgan. Net worth, $11.2 billion. Dead silence fell in the room. Mom's fork clattered against the porcelain. Leo's smirk was replaced by outright shock. Father coughed into his wine glass, choking. His friends leaned forward, squinting at the screen as if they couldn't believe what they were seeing. I remained completely still, allowing the silence to hang heavily in the air. Inside, my heart was pounding, but not from fear. It was liberation. All those years of doubt, all those nights alone building what they thought was nothing. It was all right there, in bold headlines, for the whole world to see. Mom finally broke the silence. "This must be a mistake," she whispered, almost pleading. "Olivia, Aegis Dynamics." As if on cue, the dining room doors swung open. Robert, my CFO, walked in, holding a tablet glowing with real-time figures. "I apologize for the intrusion," he said, looking over the stunned faces. "But the story has leaked. Ms. Morgan, your valuation just jumped to $11.8 billion following market reaction. We are getting calls from Tokyo, Frankfurt, and Hong Kong headquarters." I rose from my chair, slowly smoothing the edge of my sweater. "Thank you, Robert," I said calmly, as if this were just another meeting. Then I looked at my parents, at Leo, at the entire room that had treated me like a nonentity. "I apologize," I whispered. "My board of directors is waiting." The sound of my chair being pushed back across the hardwood floor sounded louder than any applause Leo had ever received. I didn't slam the door. I didn't raise my voice or throw their words back in their faces. There was no need. The truth had already exploded in the middle of that starched dining room, louder than anything I could have said. As I walked out, accompanied by Robert, I felt every pair of eyes on me. My parents were frozen, Leo, pale, jaw-dropped, Father's friends, urgently whispering to each other. I didn't look back. Let them stew in their silence. The moment the cool night air hit my face, my phone began to vibrate relentlessly. Notifications poured in one after another. CNBC, Bloomberg, Fortune, The Wall Street Journal. The headlines were the same. "Invisible billionaire unmasked." Stock tickers screamed from my screen. My company's valuation was soaring in real time. I slid into the back seat of my car, Robert handing me a tablet. "We have the Tokyo call scheduled already," he said. "The Prime Minister's office wants confirmation on the infrastructure deal." I nodded, scanning the figures. Billion after billion rolled upward, as if the universe was finally keeping score. Yet my chest didn't tighten with anxiety. It was calm. I had spent 5 years building Aegis Dynamics in silence, in the shadows, brick by brick, acquisition by acquisition. Tonight was not chaos. It was the unveiling of something inevitable. Meanwhile, calls from my family kept coming. 10 from Mom, 12 from Dad, 3 voicemails from Leo that sounded the same, disbelief turning to panic. I didn't answer any of them. For years, I had adjusted to their opinions, craved their approval, allowed their doubts to define me. Tonight, I chose silence. Instead, I dove headfirst into work. I drafted responses to governments, negotiated contracts, finalized an acquisition we had been chasing for months. By midnight, Aegis controlled an even larger piece of the tech industry than it had that morning. Every signature, every deal was a quiet blade directed at the family who mocked me for dreaming too big. The next morning, global headlines were emblazoned with my name. Olivia Morgan, the secret architect of modern technology. Startup they laughed at now valued higher than Microsoft and Apple combined. Interview requests piled up, invitations from governments, private jets waited on runways. And my family, they were sinking. Through rumors, I learned that Dad's business friends were already calling him, asking why he never mentioned his daughter's empire. Mom's country club, the one that denied me 3 times, suddenly sent me a personal invitation. Stock in Leo's company began to slide. Investors realized that Aegis Dynamics controlled the supply of the very chips his firm depended on. Did I gloat? Did I march back to their mansion to rub it in? No, I didn't need to. Silence was louder than any revenge. All I needed to do was keep moving forward. Let the empire speak for me. Sometimes the sharpest counterattack is not fire and fury. It is the sound of a phone vibrating with missed calls that you will never answer. By dawn, the war had begun, not in boardrooms or on stock exchanges, but in my voicemail. "Sweetie, it's Mom," the first message chimed, her voice strained, almost rehearsed. "I hope you know how proud we are of you. Why don't you swing by for dinner tonight, just family?" Next was Father. "Olivia, listen, we need to discuss business. With my experience in your company, we could really make something of this." His tone reeked of the same authority he had used all my life, as if nothing had changed. Then Leo, less polished, more frantic. "Olivia, we need to talk about the chip supply. Aegis can't just. We're family, right? Don't do this to me." The irony nearly made me laugh. For years, I was the nuisance, the child wasting time. Now, overnight, I was the leverage. I ignored every call. Silence was still my weapon, but I couldn't ignore what happened next. They showed up at my office unannounced. From the 72nd floor of Aegis's glass headquarters, I saw them on the lobby cameras. Father nervously adjusted his tie. Mom clutched her handbag like a lifeline. Leo paced like a caged animal. For the first time, they looked small. Robert appeared at my door. "Do you want me to usher them out?" I considered it. God, it was tempting. But no, I wanted them to see. I wanted them to walk into the empire they denied existed. When they entered, their jaws dropped at the sight of the rows of analysts, the walls of real-time market data, the quiet efficiency of a company managing global infrastructure. Leo's gaze darted to the global map glowing on the main screen. Our servers pulsed across every continent. Father cleared his throat, attempting to mask his awe. "Impressive operation you have here." "It's not an operation," I corrected him coldly. "It is the foundation of modern technology." They exchanged glances, trying to find their footing. Mom leaned forward, her voice soft, ingratiating. "Sweetheart, we always wanted the best for you. We didn't mean it back then. You know we love you." Her words should have warmed me. Instead, they sounded hollow, fragile as glass. Leo finally broke. "You are destroying my company. Do you realize that Aegis Dynamics controls every chip we need? You can't do this. It's not fair." I met his panic with composure. "Business is business, Leo. Isn't that what Father always said?" He winced, but I didn't press the point. I turned to Robert. "Send them the standard partnership documents. If they want supply, they will pay market price. No exceptions." The meeting was over. As security escorted them out, I caught my reflection in the glass wall, composed, unshakable, a woman who was no longer seeking approval. For the first time, I realized this fight was no longer mine. It was theirs. It happened 3 days later. I was reviewing a deal in the executive boardroom when Robert leaned toward me. "Ma'ams, they are back. They won't leave this time." I already knew who he meant. My family. I sighed, closed the folder, and said, "Let them in." The door swung open. Father entered first. His confidence was fractured, but not gone. Mom followed, her face powdered with the kind of effort that suggested she had rehearsed this moment in the mirror. Leo trailed behind, pale, nervous, the mask of superiority long stripped away. The silence was suffocating until Father finally spoke. "Olivia, we were wrong." 3 words I never thought I would hear. But instead of satisfaction, I felt only cold detachment. "Wrong about what, Dad? That my company was a joke, that I should have given up." He swallowed hard. "We underestimated you, we didn't see what you were building, and now we need your help." There it was, not love, not pride, need. Leo stepped forward, his voice cracking. "My company is bleeding. Without your supply chain, we won't survive. You can't just cut us off. We're family." "Family," the word again, thrown out like a lifeline only when convenient. I stood up slowly, the city lights shining behind me, casting my shadow across the room. "Family," I repeated quietly. "Where was family when you laughed at my startup? Where was family when you told me to quit everything to be more like Leo?" Leo opened his mouth but couldn't utter a word. I turned to Father. "You told me all my life that business is business. You said that when you bypassed me for opportunities. You said that when Leo was praised and I was ignored. Well, you were right." His face fell. "Olivia, I didn't mean to." But I cut him off. "Business is business, and Aegis doesn't do favors, not for competitors, not even for blood relatives." The room was silent, the kind of silence that burns deeper than a scream. Mom finally whispered, "We are losing you." I shook my head. "No, you lost me years ago when you determined my worth without giving me a chance to prove it." Robert appeared at the doorway with a tablet. "Ms. Morgan, the G7 delegation is waiting for you." I nodded. Then I turned to my family one last time. "This boardroom is now my family. These screens, these deals, this empire, you don't have to understand it. You just have to live with it." Their faces blurred as I walked out, but I will never forget the echo of my father's old words, turned against him, final and cutting. "Business is business." The headlines continued for weeks. "Olivia Morgan, the shadow billionaire who rewrote technology. The startup they laughed at is now an empire." Every time I saw those words, I thought about the years my own family failed to see me. Yet I wasn't angry anymore. Not truly. The silence I kept for so long had already done its job. I didn't need apologies, shouting, or banners of regret. Their faces in that room, their shock, their desperation, it was enough. Sometimes revenge doesn't look like fire and fury. Sometimes it is quieter, sharper. It's walking away without raising your voice. It's allowing the world to speak the truth you always knew. I built Aegis to prove to myself that I could. But in the end, it proved something else entirely. That the girl they wrote off became the woman who held the power to redraw the world's map. I no longer crave their recognition. I don't wait for their praise. My life is not measured by their approval. It is measured by what I chose to build when no one believed in me. And the sweetest part, they will never underestimate me again. Have you ever been underestimated by your own family? Told your dreams were foolish? Share your story in the comments. I read everyone. And if this story resonated, hit like and subscribe, because sometimes the quietest success is the loudest revenge.